You remember a world without the internet. You also cannot imagine your life without it. You had a childhood with no screens, no notifications, no digital footprint. You played outside until the streetlights came on. You called your friend's house and their mom picked up. You recorded your favorite songs off the radio, finger hovering over the pause button. And then, almost overnight, the entire world changed. And so did you. But here is the part nobody ever talks about. While everyone around you seemed to land somewhere, to belong to something, to carry a clear identity, you were always just slightly off to the side, watching, adapting, never fully arriving. You are not Gen X, you are not a millennial. You're something the world doesn't have a proper name for. And that quiet, invisible feeling of not quite fitting in anywhere, it didn't start in adulthood. It started the moment the world split in two, and you were standing exactly on the line. Picture this. It's 2008. You're at a work event. The people 5 years younger than you are excitedly showing each other something on their phones. Facebook, Twitter, a new app that lets you post your location. They're laughing, tagging each other, completely at ease in this new digital language. Then you look to your other side. The people 10 years older than you are sighing, crossing their arms, muttering about how everything is becoming too much, too fast, too cold. And you understand both of them completely. You can sit at either table. You can have either conversation. You know the frustration of the older group. You feel the excitement of the younger one. You belong to neither, and somehow to both. So you do what you have always done. You smile. You adjust. You translate. And you go home that night with a feeling you've never quite been able to name. Not loneliness exactly, not confusion exactly. Something quieter than that. Something like standing in a hallway between two rooms. Both rooms are warm. Both rooms have people you love. But the hallway is cold, and it's yours alone. Psychologists have a word for what you experienced. They call it a liminal identity. Liminal comes from the Latin word for threshold. It means you exist on the edge, not fully inside one place, not fully inside another. Most people spend their whole lives trying to avoid the threshold. They want to be somewhere, defined, categorized, safe in their belonging. But you were born into the threshold. You didn't choose it. The timeline chose it for you. Think about what your brain actually lived through. Your childhood was completely analog. No internet, no smartphones, no constant comparison culture. You learned how to be bored. You learned how to entertain yourself with almost nothing. You learned how to sit with silence without reaching for something to fill it. These are skills most people have to deliberately practice today. But then, just as you were entering adulthood, right at the age when identity is being formed, when you're figuring out who you are and where you belong, the entire architecture of human connection changed. Email, instant messaging, the internet, and then social media, and then smartphones. You didn't grow up with it, you adapted to it. And that difference, growing up with something versus adapting to it, that difference lives inside you psychologically in ways you probably haven't fully examined yet. Here is the insight that might stop you for a moment. Millennials grew up digital. For them, the online world is as natural as breathing. Their identity was partially formed inside it. Gen X grew up fully analog and had most of their identity formed before the digital world arrived. Many of them quietly resisted it or accepted it on their own terms much later. But you were right in the middle. Your identity was forming mid-construction when the whole blueprint changed. That is not a small thing. That is the psychological equivalent of building a house, getting halfway through the walls, and then someone changes all the materials. You didn't break, you adapted, you kept building. But somewhere in that adaptation, something got buried. A version of yourself that was forming in a quieter, slower world got interrupted, and you have spent years carrying both versions, the one who knows how to sit in silence and the one who can navigate a world of noise. Both are real. Both are you.
But holding two selves is exhausting, and most people never even noticed you were doing it. Think about how this shows up in your daily life. You feel deeply nostalgic for a simplicity that younger people around you have never experienced and older people have moved on from. You sometimes mourn a slowness that the world has completely forgotten. At the same time, you are more technologically capable than you give yourself credit for. You learned it all, you mastered it, but it never quite felt native. It always felt like a second language. Fluent, yes, but still translated. You are often the person in the room who can calm both the anxious young person and the skeptical older one, because you carry something from both worlds. In relationships, you often feel like you give more than you receive, not because you are weak, but because translating takes energy. Being the bridge takes energy. You learned early that you had to adjust yourself to be understood, and so adjustment became your default setting. You became good at reading rooms, sensing moods, shifting your tone, which made you remarkably perceptive and remarkably tired. Here is the part that might surprise you. That feeling of not belonging, the one you have carried quietly for years, it was never a flaw. It was a symptom of living through the most compressed period of human technological change in recorded history and surviving it psychologically intact. You were not failing to belong. You were succeeding on something incredibly difficult. You were holding two entire worlds in your nervous system at the same time, a world that moved slowly and a world that never stopped accelerating. And you never cracked completely. That is not nothing. That is in fact extraordinary. There is something else. Because you remember life before the noise, you have a kind of psychological anchor that genuine digital natives do not have. You know, deeply in your body, that silence is survivable, that boredom is survivable, that being unreachable does not mean being unloved. You know what it feels like to wait, to sit with uncertainty, to let something unfold slowly. In a world that has completely forgotten how to do that, you are quietly carrying a skill that is now considered rare. You are not stuck in the past. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are something this world desperately needs and doesn't have language for yet. So let this be the moment you stop explaining yourself. Stop apologizing for not fitting neatly into a category. Stop feeling like the confusion you carry is a personal failure. Stop wondering why you sometimes feel homesick for a world that no longer exists. You grew up twice, once in a world of silence and simplicity, once in a world of speed and noise. And the fact that you are still here, still curious enough to watch a video like this, still searching for the language to describe what lives inside you, that says everything. You were never lost. You were always exactly where you were supposed to be. Right in the middle, right on the threshold, carrying both worlds, so that the rest of us could find our way through.